All right, welcome you guys. This is Eric here with Investor Central Club and Stacks AI Software. Got Max here with us. You guys know him as Trades and Gains or Unusual Markets. We've got our Wednesday closing bell show for you guys. We're gonna go over some stuff real quick. There's gonna be a little bit of education. Talk a little bit about some of the plays that we took this week so far, and some outlooks for the upcoming week as well. Just to start off, I know in our, Max and I were just talking, it's been kind of a slow week. There hasn't been too much going on. The news that you guys are probably hearing right now all has to do with the tariffs that Trump just imposed upon certain countries. We've got some news about the Epstein files. Basically, they said there was no client list, but, I don't really think any of us really truly believe that. And what was the last thing is Texas. Yes, we had the floods in Texas and, the political side of that. So, but here we're here to talk about what's going on with the markets, get an idea of some strategies. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some advanced strategies since there were a few questions that came up in our Discord today. But you guys can see we've already got stacks up on the screen right here. Some big money puts coming in, if you might just have noticed. Quite a few that have just hit the tape right here. And I want to talk a little bit about stuff like this. So you can see right here with SLV, okay? SLV just came in. We have the same time. We have the same amount of contracts. So 10,000 is it? Yeah, 10,000 each of those. We've got a buy of the puts and we've got a sell of the calls. So sometimes what you'll see are these combinations where, for example, we just saw, and Daniel pointed this out earlier today, we saw a combo here. Let's see, 1033. We've got buying of the puts, selling of the puts, but we also have selling of the calls, and it's the same amount for all three of those. So we want to talk a little bit about that. If you're familiar with the basic strategy of buying calls and buying puts, what that does is that gives you kind of an unlimited top in terms of the ceiling of profit. So for example, if I buy calls, I have an unlimited ceiling as to what direction, if price keeps going up and continues going higher and higher, that potential profit I can make is, somewhat uncapped. It can go on forever. All right. Obviously, price doesn't ever really do that, but for those examples, we can use GameStop. When the GameStop ran up really high, it gives those possibilities for extreme profits. Same with the puts, but puts are more so capped at 0. So for example, if a stock is trading at 30 bucks and you buy some puts to aim for the downside, you're capped at that $0 floor, meaning that once price goes down to 0, you don't really have any more of a profit to make past that. But what happens here is, and this is something that if you have margin on your account, usually it's like a level 3 type of trading tier that you have for a lot of these brokerages, is you can kind of create a cap as to where you don't think price might go past. So for example, here with QQQ, they bought these puts, same strike, same date, but here they're saying they bought the puts for right, 550. Okay, they spent $1.3 million on that, and they're pretty expensive, $23.65 for those contracts. Now they sold the puts for that same strike or same date, but at a strike of 484.78. So what that means is they're aiming for and saying price is going to go below 550, and then they've given themselves a range. So instead of it going all the way down to 0, they say 484 is kind of where that floor is. So they will make the most of their profit between that 550 and 484 range. Okay. What also happens is because they're selling these puts, they're going to get a credit of $9.06 each for each one of those contracts. So ultimately, it makes that position a little bit cheaper for them to get into, and is a strategy that, if you understand, gives you gives you a cap as to the amount of premium you might lose if this doesn't go your way, but it also gives a more defined range as to where you're aiming for. So that's something to consider here. Then they also went and they sold the calls for the same date, but for 620. And so again, that's red here, showing that it's bearish. So they're expecting that price is going to stay below that 620 range for that, if that makes sense. Okay, so more advanced strategies. I will also make sure that you guys see here, if you go on Investopedia, let me share this with you. If you go on Investopedia, they do have some of this 10 option strategies that everybody should know. And here you've got your more advanced strategies that they talk about. And those ones would be your spreads, you've got collars, straddles, strangles, butterflies, all those things. And it really helps to take a look as to what these charts really say. So for example, the straddle is a very important one, where your profits, if you're not sure what direction, so let's say for example we're talking about an upcoming earnings, and we expect price to go up or down. We don't expect it to stay in stay inside of a range. Then we can go with something like a straddle, where we would profit as long as price went above or below a certain level that we've predetermined. Okay, so for example, this one, price is trading at 50 bucks. We go and buy, we buy calls for over 56. We buy puts for under 44. And what the idea is here, that because we expect that movement, if price stays within those ranges, we're actually going to lose out on our premium, but above and below give us profits. And then what we also have is called a strangle, where we just go with further out the money type of positions. And that's another way to play some of these earnings type of situations, if you may. Okay, so just want to make sure that we answered that question, because again, in our Discord, we're very focused on making sure you guys get the education side of how to trade options too. Go ahead and take a look at this Investopedia, option strategies, advanced option strategies. And if you do have questions, don't hesitate. Let us know in our Discord, or you can always email us at help@investorcentralclub.com, and we're more than happy to answer those. Another thing that I want to give you is this. It's called the Options Profit Calculator. And I really enjoy this website, because what it does is you can input your calls and puts and even your strategies that you have. And it can help you get an idea as to what price may do and what your profit may look like. So for example, somebody was asking about ARK. And what we can do here is we can go ahead and select the option that they're in. Let's say they're in 74. Okay. You can input your price that you purchased at, in case that wasn't the one they pull up isn't exactly where it's at. And with the calculation, you can see here that it'll give you, what price should be at certain times and certain ranges. And again, if you just let price and time tick away, where you're going to see your full losses, where your premium, and what percentage you might be able to see. You can also switch this to say dollars or percentage of your cost, etc. And it's a very visual way to look at it, because for example, this is just for next Friday. If price just stays where it's at, you'll see how you'll continue to lose out on the premium of your contract. So it's one of those situations where it's extremely important to understand how price of options move, because it is not like equity. There is a time theta decay. There are other calculations to be aware of. So understand, again, it is a riskier type of position than just buying the stock itself, and always be aware of what price is going to do and what your contract is going to do, depending on the movements of what you're looking at. All right, let's get back to stacks. We've got a couple things we want to talk about today. We do have earnings for tomorrow. We got Delta Airlines. We talked a little bit about it yesterday during our live stream. We did a bonus one on Tuesday. But Max wasn't able to make it with us. I've got him here with us now. Definitely want to get a little bit of his input in terms of what we expect with Delta Airlines. We will take a quick peek over here at our options and our what Stacks has to say. So today, the 9th, we do have a couple of sells coming in, some more buying of calls, a few puts here. But the things that are really sticking out are these two unusual puts that are in. The two big monies that we have as well down here happen to be about $6 million of calls. We can peek over at some of our charts in a moment to see if they are possibly still in those. But I'm going to turn it over to you, Max. What do you think about Delta Airlines for this earnings coming up tomorrow morning?
So they already said 2025 is pretty much a wash for Delta Airlines right now, just because consumer sentiment's down and any really consumer-based business is not doing well if it includes people spending money on things that like aren't a necessity in a sense. But hold on one second, I'm getting their expectations that are coming up because the one thing I'm interested in is usually if someone says that the rest of their year is going to be a wash, they'll adjust their EPS and revenue for that. So it looks like okay. So we have Q2 earnings scheduled pre-market tomorrow. We're looking at 205 to 207 for EPS, 12% year over year decline. And then revenue, we're expecting 16.2 to 16.4 billion, up 5% year over year. B of A, UBS, and Morgan Stanley are all expecting inline results, but warn of soft demand trends and possible tariff and fuel impacts as well. The watch points are premium and international resilience. Analysts see strength in higher margin international and premium cabins, despite weak domestic tariffs as well, and then macro vulnerabilities, so trade uncertainties, tariff pressures, and sluggish main cabin demand could keep volatility elevated. So again, that just goes back to like consumers aren't buying flights as often because they're not really spending as much. So look for a beat or meet of expectations. And then in terms of their outlook, really weak demand and just a cautious outlook overall could be their downfall as to why um, why there's some downside. Call buyers are betting on upside. If they surprise on net income or update guidance positively, you can expect kind of a short squeeze with them as well. So that's really the big thing with them. I'm not expecting anything huge out of them or really out of the whole airline industry in general, unless you're Boeing, but that's not even an airline at that point. That's just plane manufacturing. So, yeah, I definitely would expect some downside with Delta here. So those puts probably should pay out pretty nicely.
Yeah, those puts are pretty cheap too. I would say if you're looking for an earnings type of gamble, I wouldn't be, uh, too mad about that one. They're 79 cents or 52 cents for
Yeah.
those positions on stacks right now. I've got my Webull pulled up here. I just wanted to double check to see what those. Oh, let me pull this up. There we go. That position that those big money got into, that volume, 20,000 contracts there, looks like they're very likely still in. The open interest still has quite a bit, 29,000 open interest for those, 2,000 traded today.
Mm.
So again, but they do have until September. So, what Stacks is kind of saying in terms of this right now, I would say is they're expecting that earnings is probably going to drop it right away, and then we'll see maybe a longer term slow grind back up through September is kind of what I'm looking at here. Because again, these guys aren't getting in this to try to lose their money, but maybe they are positioning themselves for some sort of information that is about to be released here. Okay. The also today too. Some plays. These ones are for the beginning of next month, August 1st. 55 and 52 strike about $1 or $1.80 a piece for those calls. But yeah, and then the same date the puts for 45. So your guess is as good as mine at this point. Delta Airlines, I will point out from our chart though, is that it does kind of have a bull flag pattern that is showing up. Let's put that up on the screen. So we've got this bull flag that's shown up right here. But the thing and the risk here is that right now it is right at the top of that bull flag. So a rejection from there is very possible. If it breaks up above, then we'll see the gains to come. And that's probably why they're playing for that September, because if you kind of look all the way out here, September, very likely that even if we have a dip here, that we could start to see us headed up a little bit further up in time. So, predictions for earnings, would you agree with me, Max? Probably see a drop from earnings, but then a slow grind back up over time through the next few months.
Yeah, probably because it's summer, so people are gonna travel. But I wouldn't be shocked to see it at like 45.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're aiming for too, right? If you consider it. All right.
That's just the last on the hour chart. That's just like the last big level of like accumulation before it made another move up. So
yeah,
it would probably need to fill that gap because that was the last like big gap up to 50 was at like 45.28 was like the bottom of that wick, which was a major line of support.
Yeah.
So
got a point of control at 48. But you can see these levels and these spikes of volume here. Yeah, 45 is where that lower end of it is before this flag formed. So, all right, what else? I did put this into my channel yesterday. I'm looking at Unity. I know it definitely had a pop yesterday that we saw quite a bit of buying at, and we saw some unusual purchases on stacks that I wanted to show you. The first thing is that there is this Wyckoff accumulation pattern that has appeared where you see, let me pull the chart over in here too, where you see these levels of support and continued buying over time. So here, let me take off the volume on this side so you can see a little better. Okay, so we've got the selling climax. We've got our automatic reaction pop back up. We've got secondary tests, retesting the lower ends. And we've just seen this spring area accumulation where you can see spikes of volume along the bottom as well as continued buying shows up. We did most recently break the upward trend. Now we're headed a little bit further up. So, we'll see what ends up happening. The thing that really opened my eyes to it was in stacks, how we saw yesterday, we had a couple people point this out, a lot of unusual buying. So for January 2026, the 47, we also have the 65 calls, and then we have a few short-term ones for 30 and 35 for next week. And if you just filter for the buys, you'll see there's a few puts sprinkled in here and there, but the majority of everything is all just calls right now, aiming for those dates. So I did notify our Discord. We are looking at the 65 calls for right around $1, the 47 calls for right now. I think these are trading a little bit over $2, so $2 and like $2 to $2.30 was the range I do believe that we're seeing today. And we've got some time for that. So we've definitely got at least about five almost 6 months for these to play out. And as long as this accumulation pattern sticks to it, as we start to see a little bit more of we start to see a little bit more of strength show up, we'll see these last LPS, meaning last points of supply, and buying up of this stock before it heads up further. So keep an eye out for this one, and this is definitely one, if you want a solid play, I would definitely take a look at this one if I were you. Do you have any notes on Unity in terms of their numbers, Max?
Yeah, yeah, I put out a whole breakdown of their flow from yesterday. So the reason why it surged is Wedbush slapped a strong buy on them the other day. Their EPS forecast is 125 for FY25 and 102 for FY26. Unity Vector AI powered ad tech plus Unity Rollout 6, that is giving it bullish sentiment. So those are like future products they have. Retail's finally reading past the first paragraph of earnings projections as well, it seems. So it wasn't meme fueled. It was definitely much more. It was much more EPS driven and AI optimism plus like real production traction. So really, when it comes to stocks getting upgraded, especially before earnings season kicks off, it's always a good sign, just because that shows like analysts see more upside with the potential product rollouts that will be hitting the tape here. So yeah, again, 116, that's not a bad expiration date, especially for the longer swings. Like for me personally, most stuff that I'm looking at is like November, October, all the way to that 116 expiration. I typically try to stay away from December just because that's typically like the peak of earnings and those never go well. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with Unity. It should be a nice it should be something we probably see play out more towards August, September, being realistic.
So two plays that I had from earlier in the year that, obviously hindsight's 2020, but I was in Palantir calls that were leaps, and I was also in Robinhood calls that were also leaps for all for 2026. And especially when they're a little bit cheaper, when they're those stocks that are under that $30 threshold. For example, Palantir was trading at like $10, and same with Robinhood. Robinhood was fairly cheap as well. Not only are the premiums cheaper for those contracts, but your rate of return when they do pop, when they do go past that out the money call, and put your contract in the money, those are situations where you tend to see some pretty solid returns. So, that's why I got into those positions. It's just a matter of waiting them out. The fact is, too, if you take a look at the Unity $65 calls, that is the furthest out strike that you can purchase for that day. So it is one of those situations. These people that are putting their money into these, they don't want that to disappear. They're not trying to lose out on those millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So understand that, one of the things I love about stacks is when you see these prints come out that are unusual or big money positions, part of your research has been done for you. Obviously, I don't always like to see people go in blindly, but a lot of these situations, you will understand, are going to be positions where institutions are doing their research. They've got their ear to the door. They happen to know people who they can discuss this stuff with, and they have an idea of what's about to happen. Whether it could be, incoming tariffs or incoming news, new earnings, government contracts or partnerships that are about to be made. These are people that are trying to get themselves in a good position to profit from those. So just understand that too. We just saw I just see MicroStrategy calls. MicroStrategy calls, big money, 1.9 mil just came in. A couple of sells as well. Were there any positions from? I know we were just discussing this. Not too much has gone on this week, but was there anything that really stuck out to you from today?
No, just FXI is the only thing I got into from today.
I saw
Because
that one
there's
too.
like,
Hmm.
I think it was like 4 million across. I got into the $40 calls for 1.75 million.
Okay. Yeah, I see those today. In the morning, yeah. $39 calls, $40 calls for December and for November. A little bit over a million for each of those. The unusual big money one is one that is definitely worth taking a look at for you guys. One of the things, so a lot of I've talked about this in a couple of our previous live streams. A lot of Chinese names are showing that accumulation pattern. Down the line as well, China very likely will have to print money in order to support their economy. But the question that we're all faced with right now is, when is that finally going to happen? So, for example, I know there's some people in BABA position, and BABA's just continued to drop further and further. It was like at 130, 140. Now it's come back down to the 100 range. So, understand that you still got to make sure you find a way to protect your premium. Sometimes it's worth getting out of those, or as long as you have additional capital, sometimes you got to make sure you plan to average down if it goes to a certain percentage. But seeing these FXIs come in, what you're looking for now is, if you see BABA, you see right buys and calls in those for the upcoming year is what we're seeing. So not as much influx as we've seen in the past. When there was that big pump at the beginning of the year, we were seeing BABA, FXI, K-Web coming in, you know, all day, every day during that time. So, I don't think it's happening quite yet, but I do still have that forecast prediction that we will start to see these names move in due time. So, just understand that. One thing as well that I noticed earlier today as I was going through my charts. Let me pull this up. BABA, I would say, especially with where it's at right now, might be a buy. It's dropped. It's got the same Wyckoff accumulation look as a lot of those other charts that I've given. But the thing that really sticks out to me here is, I always like to look at price to earnings ratio. It's at a 14 right now, guys, for Alibaba. So if you've got a retirement portfolio, I would say, Alibaba, they make a lot of money. Down the line, yes, tariffs are probably going to hurt them, but people are still going to need things manufactured and made for themselves, especially on the consumer side of things too. So 14.26 in terms of the PE ratio, that's really low. If you take a look at some, let's just like to pull up Palantir right now. Palantir's PE ratio is at a 607. So, doesn't always have to make sense, but when it does go down to very, very low PE ratios, you can generally expect with some of these really strong companies that have a very good foundation and have a lot of business overall, that they'll find a way, and in due time, those PE ratios are eventually going to head further up. So just something for you guys to kind of peek at right there. I also wanted to point out and show you guys too. K-Web hasn't dropped as much as those other names, but also showing that accumulation pattern. FXI, same idea. FXI is a little bit further up, but FXI is looking like it's very, very possibly going to see more of a breakout soon. Very, very likely to see it head up past that 38.20 range in due time. So keep an eye out for that.
You calls are getting sold, Mister. A lot of people selling calls at close right now, or like towards close.
Let me pull that back up.
You at 31, Mister at 420.
By the way, you guys, this is Theodore. I'm sure you've heard a lot of crying in the background. Um, Wife's out and about today, so I've got him during the live stream, but he just wants to say hi. He's a little fussy today, but we got him.
Ooh, SPY 622. Someone's delta hedging into tomorrow.
Those of you that are in our chat right now, throw us some tickers you guys want us to take a look at. Let us know if there's anything you've noticed in stacks that you want to talk about. If you are in the chat as well, listening in, would love to see you guys comment stacks or hit that like button for us. Help us out a little bit. We love to do this for you guys, but we also got to play the algorithmic game too. So if there's anything, any way you guys can, hit that like button. Give us some emojis if possible, and we'll get into those tickers in a moment too. ASAN. Absolutely nothing. Oh, there we. Oh, AVAV. That's not it. Okay, ASAN. Let's take a look at the chart though. Yeah, we got some tickers to look at. Okay. Let's go pull up my trading view. ASAN. So stacks didn't have anything on it, so that's usually a sign that the liquidity for options might be kind of rough. I want you to keep that in mind. In terms of the chart though, okay, number one, I've shown you guys this type of chart. Oh, look at how high it went. It went as high as 145, and right now it's trading at 14. So it's down already 90% from that top. Let's see. It's showing a bit of accumulation, right? You guys understand that pattern that I've shown you guys here. The accumulation pattern, right? If you put the floor down here at about $11, if you purchased at that $11 range, you could sell at 20 or 20 plus over and over and over again. So now the question is big money necessarily accumulating at those lower ends? It's a little bit hard to tell here, right? We don't necessarily see a giant spike at the very bottom, giant spike at the bottom a little bit here, but more of these pushes up. Now, earnings has always been solid for them. They've been beating their earnings, their numbers, but they look like their earnings are still negative at this point. So, oh, standardized reported. Okay, so they did beat last earnings. What does Asana do? Technology services package. So the question with this is, are they going to be a company that ends up, you know, are they poised to eventually make money? Just like with Palantir, you got to understand, for the longest time, Palantir wasn't making any money. And it was more recently when they started to turn a profit that they started to shoot up and zoom up in terms of the price.
Yeah, I don't think Asana's been public for very long.
Yeah, not the
Because
longest.
they've been around for a really long time. I almost worked for them when they were a startup.
Yeah, they just started back in October of 2020.
Yeah.
So, maybe if you have information on it, expecting it to probably go up over time, I wouldn't be too mad about purchasing it down here at about $14-15. Obviously, that $11 range would be a little bit more advantageous. I don't see it necessarily dropping below that 11. If it does, it'll probably get scooped up pretty quick and shoot back up. So something that, you know, if you're able to hold on to this thing for 3 to 5 years and they start to become cash flow positive, I could definitely see it trading back up above that $25-26 range. And from $15, that's a that's already what, 60-70% return. But you got to be patient with this one because they're still figuring stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
IREN. What is this? Iron Limited. Oh, here's something I want you guys to do. If you're taking a look at your chart and you see this, some people call it a cup and handle, Some people will call it the Wyckoff accumulation, just like I've shown you. If you're in our Discord, understand that there is in the education tab, I've put our Wyckoff charts in there. You can download those and put them into your trading view, and you can compare them a little bit. But this looks like a classic accumulation structure. Another thing that really sticks out to me, I got to make sure our faces don't cover it, but down here, you see all that volume coming in? When you see volume coming in as price gets pushed up higher and higher, that also just means that the accumulation is net margins are positive now. They've done quite well over the past year. The technicals say it's a buy, analysts say it's a strong buy. Not too bad. I don't love how quickly it shot up right here. I expect it to probably chop around a little bit between that $18 to $16 range. Probably chop around a little bit here before it heads up further, unless it has additional news or rumors that push it up right away. But what you're looking at here, especially on the left here, you'll see there was quite a bit of buying and selling in this range, so you can expect that sellers are going to push it right back down when it hits that top range at first.
What else is in here? Microsoft.
Yeah, we love Microsoft. Microsoft, great company. Hitting those highs. It's just run up so fast most recently. Wouldn't be surprised to see it relax back down a little bit. What's up, Ethan?
Anything to stay ahead of Nvidia.
Yeah.
Like that's
really what it is, right?
Who's gonna have the highest market cap?
I mean, Microsoft in the long run, it's that kind of company that you buy and just hold it in your portfolio.
Yeah.
Right. You don't need to do anything but maybe add to it over time. It is pretty high up right now. Wouldn't be surprised to see it drop a little bit, chop around. PE ratio is strong, 38. But yeah, it is. There is a giant AI battle going on at this point. Every company out there is trying to figure out, how can I stay ahead? How can I make sure I get enough energy and power to power it all? But you have to trust in those big, strong companies that they're going to do everything they can to try to win out on that battle. Thoughts on QQQ Stacks AI print? One thing I will point out about Stacks AI is that when I've noticed them purchasing SPY, QQQ, so the indices, and they're willing to spend all that extra money on time. Okay, so this one, for example, QQQ, let me just pull up Stacks real quick for you. Stacks AI, QQQ, they purchased for January 2026. Now, you're gonna start to see that as a very common expiration date right now, just because at this point we're in the second half of the year, and that is going to be the monthly or the yearly contract that people are going to start aiming for. QQQ is at $553 as of their spot price, or when they purchased this contract. So from there to the strike price they purchased, $665, that's an expected move of 20%. So they're expecting QQQ to move 20% more through this next 6 months. Okay, 5,000 contracts. The pricing for it too, $263 or $2.63 here, not too bad. If you're willing to wait that one out and you expect tech to continue to flourish, that's actually a solid position to consider. And I will also point out too, we had, I don't know if it's back here, back in April, and I will make sure that we put a little asterisk next to this conversation here. Back in April, when we saw the tariff news and the huge, tariff tantrum, where we saw the markets drop pretty heavily, we saw these SPY contracts for September 600 strike back when it was down at 494, guys. Okay, where's SPY at now? It's past 620. So
Yeah.
these contracts actually saw a 10x return. I talked about that yesterday in our Stacks AI review. So anytime I see, right, we don't see too many of them. SPY, right? We saw another SPY call come in as well for 750, but these ones are still quite a bit out of the money. These ones do have until 2026, so keep that in mind. 5 mil being spent there as well. But notice this, they're expecting a 20% return. So we can kind of take a look at it and think of, okay, well, is it that same type of person just trying to get in, buy the 20% expiration expected move, and as we kind of slowly grind our way up, make new all-time highs, eventually this is going to be maybe not necessarily a 10x return, but we could definitely see this one profit pretty nicely over time. So I will show, I'm going to let our back testing do the talking for us, but if you don't trust Stacks AI and what what Stacks AI is saying, I don't know what to tell you. All the numbers, all the profits are there to show you. The hardest part I will say about Stacks AI is understanding when you start to get a little too greedy, because again, yes, there are going to be a lot of big hitters, but not everything's going to do that. You still got to make sure you play your risk management and be careful with your situation. Especially with those positions that are still out of the money. Okay, so understand that. JPM. We did see quite a bit of JPM lately. Let's talk about that. All right, we see a lot of big money calls. We see, man, this is all just for Friday as well. And price has gone down since then. Price is down about $10 since then. Let's see what else we see. Yeah, I know, Theodore.
I mean, maybe they're expecting a recover. I mean, JPM does move quick when it does. It moves quick when it wants to,
Yeah.
for the most part.
Banks, right? Banks have a lot to do with whether or not we see our interest rates changing, whether or not the Fed actually takes and makes some moves with that. Another side of it is, are we going to start to really see the influx and the money printing coming in so that we start to alleviate some of this debt spiral that we're experiencing with the national deficit? I believe that it's all going to happen. The hardest part, especially with options, that we'll always remind you of, is the hardest part with options is the time. Timing is extremely key. And so if you take a look at these JPM positions, are they still in this? That's the big question. Let me pull up my Webull for this. 711, 280.
With ones like those, I also look to see if that has turned into open interest.
Yeah. 711, 280. We still got open interest about a 1,346, but with the number of prints that we saw here, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those. All right, let's take a look as to what this chart shows us too. Yeah, this one's just hurting since then. It just drops. We saw a big spike here. Okay. Saw a big spike here. Yeah, this one's hurting. I don't love the short expiration date, especially with it coming up on Friday. But I would keep an eye on JPM to see what happens over the course of the next week, especially as those expire. Market makers probably just taking their money. Okay. All right. He's probably gonna need his bottle soon. Let me show you guys the chart that I see. JPM has got this blow off top right now, so we will probably see it chop around up here for a little bit. Wouldn't be. We already saw it drop a little bit from this top. It's down what 4 to 5%, which is a little bit pullback. So
Yeah. But it is
PE
banking.
ratio, yeah, PE ratio at 14. That's pretty solid, right? So over time, definitely can see it go up if they do start printing more money flows into assets and stuff like that. Down the line, it's one of those long-term situations.
Yeah, no, it is for sure.
Right.
It is for sure. But I also just watch for others like Wells Fargo, C.
Yeah. Take a look as to how the other banks are doing, right? Bank of
Mhm.
America, BAC.
Because they typically kind of all run in the same pattern. So you don't have to, like, that goes for really any sector you're investing in. If you're unsure or you think it's like an out of the ordinary type of situation, just look at what are their competitors, like how are people treating their competitors right now, and then that'll a kind of give you an idea of where they stand in their respective sector, but then it also can give you that extra confirmation of like, oh well, it looks like there's just call buying going on in banking as a whole versus JPM is kind of the golden standard because of Jamie Dimon. So it's really just being aware of like what are you investing in, where are they at in terms of like how are they viewed in their industry, and then um, playing the sentiment and time game for the most part. It's just understanding like, all right, do I think this scenario could happen in the next 5 months? Go look at what simulated returns could be if you have certain price levels you have in your head, so then you can scale in and out accordingly. That also can help you set average down points for things that are 3 months, 6 months out, a year out. So that's where kind of all that strategy will come into play. But yeah, it's with banking in specific, from what I've seen, it is one of those things where like I've been down 40% on JP Morgan contracts, and the next day I'm up 100% somehow because they named a successor or they inked some new partnership deal and they shed like $20 in the span of 2 days, and you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, and they just made all that back. So
Yep.
they're definitely a company where when we see these large drop-offs, if you go and look at the point of like sell-off, that is sometimes like a retraction point for it. So you'll randomly see it go up like $13 in a day. And people are like, that's random. When in reality, it's not, because that's kind of how JPM moves, if you notice that as well.
If you had just looked at my chart while I was looking through Bank of America, Citibank, Wells Fargo, you'll kind of notice that all of those charts have the same look to them. They just broke past that recent high, and it's just kind of pulled back after a little peak up above. So, expect them to move together. Especially, I think right now, this administration's going to do everything they can to pump these markets. If you guys kind of understand I heard something on a podcast earlier about how this whole situation with the Epstein video that's being released, saying that he had no client list, etc. It's really basically saying, like, we already know what really happened, but ultimately, it's basically saying to the people that are involved, we're gonna do what we can to protect you. Not only your what your interests are, your money, those types of things. Us as an administration, we're gonna do our best to help protect you guys. And I think that's kind of what you can expect with the markets too. It's also very funny to think about when you look back on April, when everybody's freaking out. Kramer's saying we're going to see, a giant crash because of these tariffs, but our president comes in on Twitter and says this is a great time to buy. And take a look at our Stacks AI prints all from April. One of our record months when it comes down to it, especially as we peak up at these all-time highs right now. We had an average return of 300% for all of our prints through April. There's only one that's doing bad right now, and that one's unfortunately the one that's doing poorly is BABA, which I know there's some people that are in. But you know, JPM, these banks, I do believe they're going to see an influx of money in due time, and I do believe as well we are going to start to hear a little bit more about the Fed lowering interest rates, or at least playing around with those interest rates. I think that's going to come very, very soon. So keep an eye out for that. That's only going to force some of these asset prices up higher. Let's see, TM. TM. Is that it? There's got to be more. Is it not loading?
TM.
There we go. Is that the history of it, or is my thing not loading?
Toyota.
TM on the daily, my stochastic shows it's pretty oversold, so I can expect a bounce from where it's at. It's leveled down quite a bit over here.
Yeah.
If you don't see too much call flow, let's see what's going on in stacks TM.
Toyota.
Not a ton in these last couple days. Overall it's bullish, but maybe this one for January 2026 $90 strike OI, if it's still pretty high, that's a 50% move, so somebody's expecting it to make a big move, and this one just came in today. But 68K, so yeah, it's fairly small money when you do consider it. NBIS, let's look at this real quick. A lot of the NBIS purchases are all bullish. Let's take a look at the chart. Oh, little mini accumulation. It could head back down toward this 42 zone. If it does, I definitely think you might want to scoop it up. It'll probably come back up toward this higher range, higher end here. Let's look at the... Ooh. Okay. Net margin negative 205%. Okay, maybe this company needs a little more time.
Just a little bit.
It is still fairly... Oh, and it's not fairly new. 2012, 2011 is when it became public. But not much has really happened with it. I will say, though, this volume that's showing up in this right area shows that it's gaining some interest. So maybe down the line. On the weekly, I do think it's going to head back down a bit. Daily shows that it's still got a little bit of room to drop. And just like I said, probably toward that 42 range is where you might want to scoop some up for it to go back up. It is a smaller name, though. Market capitalization is $10 billion, but still, be careful with your volume and open interest if you are trading options on this name.
Yeah, those spreads will get nasty.
Coin and MicroStrategy. So, yeah, Coinbase is ready to move, I think. It is definitely one of those things, like, we go through these cycles with Bitcoin. Yeah, same with MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is peaking up, ready to break out, but it's still got to break up above that 425 range. We had a lot of resistance up at here where it rejected from. But just like if you see, I drew this my yellow lines showing that I expect it to head up further, go up, reject. So we're probably took a little longer than I had expected, but that's kind of what I would think. Reject from this high. Might not have to come so far down low, but once we do break up above, we'll retest that before we head up further is the expectation. It definitely has this Wyckoff reaccumulation look to it, where we had a lower spring show up down here. And that's the zone that we see. We got a secondary test area buying climax. We're up here at this last point of supply, so what we'll probably see soon is we'll see some sort of sign of strength to push it up above before it hits and retests to go up further. Could it be in August when we see their earnings? That could be a very good possibility. Like I said, again, the hard part about these, if you're trading options, is figuring out how much time. And also be careful. MicroStrategy tends to have some extremely high IV. So be careful with your volatility. Be careful with that IV crush. Because what happens with it is everybody jumps in at the same time. The way that I've always explained it when it comes down to our Investor Central Academy course is you want to think of it kind of like a pool. Every option with its strike and its expiration is a different pool. And the more that people want to get in, the bigger the waves and the bigger the splashes tend to be. And you don't want to get splashed is kind of the idea. You want the waters to be a little bit more steady. IV, like I've explained before, IV is a measure of how far up and down that standard deviation, or how far up and down the natural movement of that price is considered normal. Okay, so the easy example is if I have a $100 contract and my IV is at 25%, if price goes down to $75, so down 25 bucks, or up 25 bucks, so up to $125, that's normal movement for that contract. Okay, that's what IV means. And so a lot of times with these types of names, especially with Coinbase and Bitcoin and MicroStrategy, when everybody is all hyped about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency moving, you start to see a lot of these IV ranks quickly hit 100% or even above. And so what that also does means is yeah, it's great if you got into a contract that's $100, going up to $200 is a normal movement for it. That's great if it goes in your favor. But remember, it also goes the other direction too. So if it goes down to zero, that's a normal movement for that contract just as well. So your range from $100 down to zero or up to 200, that's what 100% IV means, is that that's a normal movement for that contract. Nothing to really blink an eye about. And so just be aware of those situations, especially with high IV situations. But yeah, MicroStrategy, I will also point out, I had this charted out from before. We were in this little area just earlier last year, and I made some call outs for us to break up above. We made some pretty good profit off of it right away. But what also always hurts to look back upon was that it continued to go up so much further, and if we had held on, it would have been a multiple X return type of situation. But again, we have to play our risk strategy and make sure that we hold on to the certain premiums that we do have. If you do leave runners, that's where you can maybe play up that bigger run. But none of us knew that MicroStrategy was going to run up so hard just like that. But we are coming across a very similar type of situation now. There is a risk, though, that this could be going through a distribution type of pattern because there is that buying climax up here. But as of right now, it's looking pretty strong. Unless we somehow see some extreme rejections near this higher end where we just see it shoot straight down and we see weakness. Right now, it's still showing a fair bit of strength that very likely could go up a bit further. If you guys made it this far, go ahead and help me comment stacks in the chat. Give us some likes, give us some hearts or emojis if you can. If you have any additional ones you want us to take a look at, we're happy to do that for you. go ahead, drop that into the chat. If you guys are enjoying these, you guys really love our analysis and what we're doing here, make sure you hit subscribe. And also there's a notification bell that will let you guys know exactly when we go live. Give us some love. If you're in the Discord, comment, let us know as well what's good, what you enjoyed, things like that. And just like yesterday, I'm gonna do my best to try to do some additional live streams for you guys at close. This week just happens to be a little bit slow with earnings. I'll pull this up real quick. Like we said, Delta Airlines is really the only big one tomorrow. I looked a little bit at Levi's. There's not really much going on with that either. So ultimately, once we get a little bit more into our earnings season for this next quarter, we'll definitely try to do a little bit more of these to try to get you guys some big bangers when it comes down to some of these earnings reports. We'll always use stacks to get ourselves a bit of an idea of what to expect, what the big money is trying to do, and get you guys, hopefully some good profits from there. Quick update on our 1K challenge. We're looking at there's a possibility in this next couple days I'm going to cut NU. It's down about a little over 60, almost quite 70% on that. Wolf still up, I think like 10 to 15%. It's kind of fluctuated back between that and like the 30-40%. We did see some more Wolf purchasing on stacks come in earlier today, so we're gonna hold on to that and let that kind of ride out. But it just looks like NU, just the time's ticking off on that one, and it's really not making the moves that we're looking for. So we're probably gonna probably in the next few days you'll see a notification in the Discord and in the chat of us probably getting out of that NU position.
Yeah, Wolf is getting ready, I think, to rip.
Yeah, agreed. All right, we're just gotta wait on it. That's kind of what it is. Yep.
Yeah, today. So there's no economic stuff going on. Like it's a pretty dead week this week. And if you've been watching the streams, you know that, because pretty much like when I'm doing like the midday report, it's not even like a full page of like big money buys or unusuals or anything.
Yeah,
Like
usually there's at least some earnings that kind of move things around.
yeah, or just like PCE or hedging or rotating or anything, and it's like there's nothing going
I
on this
mean, the
week.
big news this week was like we saw those LLY Eli Lilly calls that came in with big money. It was like $16 million.
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing about that was we saw a big pop the next day. So some people made, I think, like 50, 60, 70% off of those short-term contracts. But then Trump came out and announced that they're going to put 200%, potential 200% tariffs on all pharmaceuticals. And then we saw it drop. Now, I will point out, though, the markets are not reacting to his tweets as hard as they were back in
No.
April. There's the idea of Taco, Trump always chickens out, where he's going to go back on his word or back on what he's said. So, the reaction to that tariff news on pharmaceuticals was fairly muted compared to what I would have expected. If people really believed that he was going to put 200% tariffs on those, Eli Lilly would have seen at least a 5% to 10% drop.
Yeah.
It didn't even drop, I think, 2 or 3% from that reaction, and it kind of jumped right back up and got bought up. So, I'm expecting that, we just gotta keep an eye out on that. They do still have a little bit of time on those positions, but if they still are in those positions, they are hurting quite a bit because of that tariff news.
But yeah, it's been next week should be better, I think.
Yeah.
Should have a little
We'll
more
start
action.
to see a little bit more action. Same with the thing is the VIX has dropped down to I think like 15 or to 16, dropped down below 17. So it's been kind of a slow grind up at this point, especially as we hit these all-time highs. I would not be surprised to see the VIX spike in the next 2 to 3 weeks, though. I definitely expect there to be some sort of news that probably moves the tape a little bit more, brings a little bit more volatility into the markets. Okay. You guys have probably already seen in our comment section below and in our description box, if you want to get an annual membership of Stacks, we're offering 25% off. Use the code July 2025 if you'd like to. Go to investorcentralclub.com/memberships. Get your guys' year of Stacks so you guys can do a little bit of this. You can join the community, discuss with us things that you see as well. We've got a great community, not only trying to teach you guys things, but also helping you guys profit when it comes down to the markets. If you haven't already subscribed to Max's Substack, subscribe to his YouTube channel as well. There's additional information that he's always sharing on a daily basis, and extremely valuable information that also is going to be using Stacks to help you guys make those analysis. With that being said, show us some love, give us some likes, give us some emojis, talk to us in Discord, let us know if any of this helped you guys. We'll try to do a few more of these as the weeks go on. We're trying to make it more of not just a Wednesday situation, but especially during those earnings weeks, maybe try to jump in on a Sunday or even Monday to get you guys additional information. Baby's getting fussy, so I'm gonna log off now. But if you guys have anything else, make sure you guys let us know. You can always message us over at Investor Central, so help@investorcentralclub.com. We're always happy to do this for you guys. We will see you guys in the next one. All right.